Hi everyone, I'm Ellie Brown, and myself and my colleagues Jeff and Naomi will be talking to you very briefly about Ribble Rivers Trust's involvement in the CaSTCo project. So Ribble Rivers Trust is part of the Northwest Demo catchment for the project, alongside Loon Rivers Trust and Mersey Rivers Trust. And each of the trusts are doing something different as part of CaSTCo, but in terms of Ribble Rivers Trust, we've had a citizen science programme for a number of years now, covering a variety of citizen science streams, and we've got a decent number of citizen science volunteers on our books already. So we wanted to use CaSTCo as an opportunity to develop a process by which our citizen scientists can allow us to more precisely locate where there are issues in the catchment and what those issues might be. And that's to help us to figure out what we might be able to do to start trying to address those issues. We're trialling a two-tier process to help us to build up that evidence base across each water body catchment within the Ribble. And we're setting up a series of what we're calling sentinel sites across the catchment. And there will be at least one of these sentinel sites per water body catchment, which are shown by the stars on this map, but we've not determined all those sites just yet. And it will be Ribble Rivers Trust Evaluation and Monitoring Officer Naomi who will be monitoring those sites, perhaps alongside a small number of our highly trained citizen scientists or those that we might train up as part of CaSTCo, and some of whom have already expressed an interest in helping us with this, which is fantastic. And those sentinel sites will allow us to compare water quality in each water body catchment relative to the other 73 water bodies in the catchment to identify those with poorer water quality and habitat quality. We're then arranging what we're calling RiverBlitzes across the priority water bodies, which will be carried out with citizen scientists. So it's a bit like a bio-blitz where the surveys are all carried out at the same time on the same day, and that's to allow comparisons between the sites. So across a given water body, we've been identifying a series of sites, generally around 10 or 12, which is shown by the yellow dots on this map. And those sites are those that could help us to narrow down where issues might be occurring within the catchment. And at both the Sentinel sites and the RiverBlitz sites, we've combined a series of citizen science methodologies to help us to build up a picture of what the issues might be across a water body catchment, and therefore what we might be able to do to start to try and address those issues. So first of all, we're carrying out the extended riverfly survey created by the FBA, in which you survey for 33 groups of riverflies. And the number of individuals from each group that you find within a sample allow you to calculate two really useful scores. The first being a water quality score that gives you an indication of the organic pollution and the general degradation that's affecting the invertebrates in a site, and also a score relating to silt and flow, which essentially summarises the siltation and flow stress affecting the invertebrates at a site. We're combining that with an adapted version of the Priority Habitat Survey, which was created by the FBA and Natural England, in which the naturalness of the river is assessed in terms of its physical, chemical, biological and hydrological naturalness. And we've actually added in some extra factors that we ourselves record during our own electrofishing surveys, which we have carried out annually since 2008, and that we found really useful in helping us to determine the state of a river. So things like what the substrate of the riverbed is made up of, and what the flow characteristics of the water are, and what invasive non-native species are present, and other signs of otters and these sorts of things. And finally, we're also carrying out some water quality sampling during those sentinel site surveys, but also the river blitzes. And there we're sampling for organophosphate, nitrate, nitrite, water temperature, and things like this. And that combination of the riverfly and the priority habitat surveys and the water sampling can really help us to build up a picture of what pressures might be acting upon the rivers and where, because only then can we start to plan what we might be able to do to address those issues.
Thanks, Ellie. Hi, everyone, and I'm Jeff. I'm the Citizen Science Coordinator here at the Ribble Trust, and I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how it all happened on the day. So we've identified the sites that we're going to complete the River Blitz on, so then it was the time to get everybody together in the local community centre for a morning of training. First of all, we went through the reasons and the value of completing a River Blitz, and that took us through till mid-morning. So in order to boost everybody's energy for the day, and we provided a breakfast, and it gave people the opportunity to network. While they were networking, there was also some trays laid out from a sample that we took first thing that day, so people could start getting their eye in and getting refreshed on what they could be looking for. We then went through the techniques that were going to be used during the day and reminded people how to divide up their section of river, how to go through the kick sampling, and finally how to complete the paperwork that they needed to bring back. Like any other good tasks, it was time for more refreshments. During the lunch period, we had an opportunity to talk to volunteers who had any concerns. We also allocated the sites, the location maps, and the equipment that people would need to carry out the RiverBlitz. The first thing that they did on site was to take the water sample, which was done across the catchment at a synchronized time so that we'd get a direct comparison of nitrates, nitrates, and organophosphates. We also took the water temperature at around the same time. We then moved on to the priority habitat assessments and completed the paperwork with those, and then finally started the 3-minute kick sample, the 1-minute rock sample. Were all carried out before we spent roughly an hour identifying and sorting the 33 species, and then obviously recording those onto the relevant form. Each location had at least one volunteer that was trained in extended river fly, allowing other volunteers to gain knowledge and experience. Anything that the volunteers found was either noted or photographed, and that helped us to build up a wider knowledge of the site. The involvement of the family members, again, is a good opportunity to sow the seed for future generations. As I previously referred to, each site had a survey form that they completed. This was then brought back to the village hall where all the data was inputted. Unfortunately, we only had one person doing it, and that was a big learning curve because it was very time consuming. The water samples were also brought back for testing and the results recorded.
Hello, I'm Naomi. I'm the Evaluation and Monitoring Officer at the Ribble Trust, and I'm going to briefly talk through our results from the day. So we produced this simple visual overview of the data that was collected on the day as a resource for the volunteers who joined us at the Wigglesworth RiverBlitz. Please note that this document isn't actually going to be shared online. We don't want to publicly highlight exact site locations, so if you are taking any pictures or videoing today, please don't share any of the maps from the following slides on social media. The RiverBlitz overview covered our 3 focus areas in data collection. So this was biological water quality, water chemistry, and habitat quality and naturalness. And we gave practical analyses of the results from the day, including issues within the catchment that could be highlighted from the data collected. For instance, this water body catchment is dominated by agriculture, so issues included poaching of the riverbanks and a lack of riparian vegetation. We also highlighted helpful resources around the methodology used on the day, such as the Riverflies and Priority Habitats websites, and detailed our next steps based on the information collated through the RiverBlitz. And this just allowed us to nicely tie up the event and ensure that volunteers understood the context and the purpose of their contribution. From the perspective of the Ribble Rivers Trust, the breadth and content of the data collected on the day was extremely valuable. You can see from the top right the water quality scores, which are based on the extended riverfly group scoring, indicated low water quality at sites 10, 8 and 1, allowing us to pinpoint specific tributaries and parts of the catchment which may be under pressure from human activity. We can interrogate this even further through the extended riverfly method by calculating the silt and flow scores, which are indicative of issues relating to sediment input, poor bank vegetation and abstraction issues upstream of the sites. Further to this, the information from the habitat quality analyses have given us extensive information relating to habitat characteristics and condition across the catchment. We were able to find physical modifications to the rivers and streams across much of the catchment, as well as indications of unnatural hydrological conditions relating to abstraction and diversion. This data flags locations for future investigation and also allows us to plan improvement works alongside farmers in the catchment. The data collected also tackled specific queries integral to directing the kinds of works that the Ribble Trust undertake across the catchment. For instance, we were able to highlight a widespread lack of riparian trees in the Wigglesworth area and a related lack of shade at many of the sites. This type of data will help us to prioritise woodland developments within the catchment and feeds into our existing prioritisation mapping for the woodland creation across the entire Ribble catchment. Additionally, citizen scientists collected information about stock access and bank poaching, highlighting stock access across 50% of the sites. This information allows us to prioritise locations for watercourse fencing and work alongside farmers to deliver yard and field improvements that benefit rivers. For one member of staff to collect this amount of data would take days, so the value of the RiverBlitz data alongside Sentinel data collection cannot be understated.
We review the methodology after each RiverBlitz, and we've done 2 now, and the things we look at are what worked well, what didn't work well, what we'll try differently next time, so there's that constant evolution of the methodology. So for example, we've decided that we will try and train up what we're going to call a Blitz squad, who have had training in all of the required citizen science streams prior to the RiverBlitz days, so the extended riverfly training, priority habitats, otter surveys and so on. And those will be the people who will be the key helpers on the RiverBlitz days. But also for each water body catchment, we'll try and recruit local volunteers who'll be partnered up with people from that Blitz squad to carry out those surveys. And those local volunteers don't need to have had all the in-depth training because they'll be partnered with someone who has. We're also thinking we'll condense the habitat survey sheet, but also adding other things that we found are missing. So for example, the presence of lots of nettles is a sign of eutrophication. And we're also going to streamline the method by which Blitz results are submitted to us immediately after sampling through the use of online forms such as Survey 123. If you have any questions at all, please do feel free to get in touch with myself, Jeff or Naomi, and we'll try our very best to answer your questions. Thank you very much for listening.